Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We liked our movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feeling bit by bit. Sweetie and sweetie, we're here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Santa's podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about their favorite flicks from childhood. I'm Sweetie with a Y.
And I'm Sweetie with an IE. Happy birthday, one day late to Sweetie.
Yeah, we never get to record on my birthday. Tried to make it happen last night, but babies, blah, blah, blah. Didn't happen. We were tired. But guys, this is my birthday.
Let's review what other movies have we done for your past birthdays.
Not very many because we only started doing them for my birthday recently. I think we did The Warriors. We did... That's the only one I remember. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, maybe?
So
Yeah.
Sweetie's birthday aligns with spooky month always. And luckily she loves spooky movies, so it all works out just wonderfully. And this is our first spooky movie of the month in our 2022 season here. Starting a little bit late, but we're going to try to get a couple in. But our first one, Sweetie favorite, and sequel, it is Scream 2.
Yeah, so if you recall, I was a big fan of Scream. My dad let me buy it sight unseen without seeing Scream at all. It was just like Blockbuster had a bin of like they would always have like 50 copies of like a new release, and then they have to get rid of those when that movie's not as big anymore. So we got that out of the bin. I watched it, was terrified, was up all night convinced that the killer was going to come through my window and kill me, which it like totally could have.
Is dead.
I know. But I loved it, even though it terrified me. And then Scream 2 happened. Same thing. Got it at Blockbuster. Extra copy. Watched it. Loved it. Was like, man, I can't wait to go to college and get killed. And like, it's going to be great. But no, but it's a really solid sequel. Super meta. I love these movies. I think this is like one of the best horror sequels that I can think of anyways. But yeah, it was definitely a favorite of mine. So I'm happy to share it with you all.
Oh, that's beautiful. My history with the Scream movies is I've never seen this movie. I'd seen Scream. Okay. Big scaredy cat, scaredy movies. Wouldn't touch this movie with a 10-foot pole when I was growing up. Terrified. Got over my scary thing, and now I'm watching these, and it's been really fun, but I have the dilemma now because this is what I used to do. I was too scared to watch these movies, but I'd learn all about them and ask people, like, who's the killer? Like, what's the plot?
She's such a faker. She's
So
like, I hate movies, scary movie. But then she asked me everything about it. I'm like, you obviously want to watch it.
So even though I had never seen this movie, I knew who the killer was, which is a real bummer because for these Scream movies, which are classic horror, so directed by Wes Craven, who's probably known as like is he still alive or he died?
No, he died.
Yeah. Now dead, but like of current times, horror director, right? Mm-hmm. But these movies have like a whodunit aspect to it, which I really enjoy. And what for this movie in particular was like such a dilemma. I guess, and maybe this is typical when you're trying to figure out, because not all horror movies are like, who's the killer? Because like Freddy Krueger, like, okay, who's the killer?
Slasher movies
Slashers
typically are.
Because then I was thinking like Jason, okay, that does kind of, you don't know it's his mom
Well, the first
until
one,
the end.
The first one. Once you get into like franchise killer, like evil, like, I don't know, mysterious magical
Halloween,
killer.
like it's always
Freddy,
Michael Myers.
Freddy and Jason
right?
are always a little different because they have like some weird powers that allows them to keep doing this. But for these kinds of slashers, or like any other slasher where it's just regular Joes, it's usually a whodunit.
Okay, so this one in particular really plays with that because from the first one, and there's like a lot of red herrings in this one, like who's the killer. But when the actual making of this, and I'm sure this is like similar to all horror movies that are like this, they keep the identity of the killer from even the cast members. So they didn't even know who the killers were as they were filming this. And when you're filming a movie, it's all out of sequence anyway. So like
even the people who were the killers didn't know?
That's what I'm confused about. Because
it's a different, it's somebody else in that suit. Like it's not the actual actor. So they could have easily done that.
Right. So, but I guess the script for this one got leaked. So then they had to change who the killer was.
Who was the killer originally?
What did they say? They had a couple different scenarios. Honestly,
that's usually what they do.
Totally crazy.
That's like what they do with TV shows now too.
Right.
Is like this something always gets leaked, so they got to have like different options.
It's really fascinating to me. So yeah, I knew who the killer was, but didn't take the fun out of it for me. Yeah, still really good. For me, this was a devastating watch because I feel like there were so many people died.
Yeah.
And it really got to me. I was like, oh my God, is nobody left in Sydney's life? And really there almost isn't anybody. And they fake kill some people. You know, they come back. You think they're dead. That was a real big one for this one. And it really got me. Like I was gutted. Like the people who died in this movie. I was gutted by this movie. It was really sad.
Totally.
So huge movie at the time. Obviously, Scream 1 came out in 1996. Kevin Williamson, I guess, who wrote this has written all of them, had already envisioned the sequel like when he was writing the original, so he like knew it was going to happen, and it was so popular, the first one, they like started filming the second one like 6 months after the release of the first one. So this one came out just a year later, which is so exciting. If like at that time, if you were a Scream fan, I can't imagine like what that would have been like. You were like, that movie's the best, and then like 6 months later you're like, yes, another one, and it was equally as good. So
well,
that's
and
exciting.
and the success of Scream, obviously a lot of actors stepped up, were like, yeah, I want to be in Scream, so they could pretty much get anybody that they wanted to be in this movie, which you can totally tell from this very long list of actors and cameos.
Oh my God, this was exhausting. So every time I had thought I had covered, okay, these are all the people in it, I'm writing it down as I normally do, another person would pop up, and I was like, get the fuck out of here.
But most of them are like cameos, and you're gonna go through it.
Yep. Okay.
She has a long list.
So obviously a Ridge returning from the first one. We have Ned Campbell,
Love that
Sydney
bitch.
Prescott, Sid as everyone calls her. Kind of like that, Sid.
Hey, Sid.
Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers.
Nice streaks.
Nice streaks. I know that. Well, this was 97. I got really unfortunate streaks like that. Not red, but like caramel. I think I've talked about it before on the podcast that were very ill-advised. Looking back, I'm like, what?
Well, what's the difference? What makes them streaks as opposed to highlights?
Isn't that what streaks are?
I don't know.
He was
That's
a
my
guy,
question.
so we didn't know like the technical hair term.
I don't know. I thought maybe highlights are supposed to blend in a little more. I don't know.
This is not. She looked a little severe. Yeah. So the guy who said that line, David Arquette as Dewey, no longer a police officer. Remind me again, why he has the limp and weird arm from the injury from the first one?
Yeah, he got stabbed in the back, severed nerve ending or whatever.
Okay. When we were watching this, Sweetie Jimmy, all he could say was doofy the whole time. And I'm like, that is not the same movie.
That's the scary movie.
Yes. And then now he kind of walks funny. I'm like, oh my God, you do really look like that character now. Yeah, crazy.
Silly.
And then we have, is that it on returnings?
Liev Schreiber as Sweetie's favorite name, Cotton Weary.
What's the deal with that name? Does that get explained in the first one? I forget. Why is his name Cotton
Maybe
Weary?
the third one. No, he's barely in the first one. It's
All
just
I
like
can
he's
think
this
of-
suspected
Person
who was supposed to have killed Neve Campbell's mom in the first one, Maureen Evans.
Right.
And but turns out he didn't do it because Billy Loomis and the other guy did.
Right.
Billy. No. What's his name? No. Billy Loomis and
Stan?
Stu.
Okay, and then we have this long list of returning characters.
We forgot Jamie Kennedy.
Oh, Jamie Kennedy as Randy.
R.I.P.
Oh, Randy. God, really wasn't expecting that.
Really?
This one.
Well, you can't.
I know.
You can't say bad things about Billy Loomis, you know?
Yeah, you can't say bad things about Billy Loomis, and I just feel like they have to do one. Like,
I think he would have been. Well, he would have been okay if he hadn't insulted Billy Loomis.
But don't you think they have to do like at least one gut punch?
No,
kill?
totally.
I mean, this one, almost all the people who died, similar to the first one, like you don't really know enough.
Well, as Randy said in a sequel, the more bodies, more gore. So they had to up the ante and really surprise you. God. So that's what they did.
Because I was trying to do the list in my head of who got killed in the first one, and it didn't feel like that many. So I was really they followed the code, what do you call it? The roadmap. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you have Elise Neal plays the friend and roommate, sort of the new Tatum in
Hallie.
Hallie. Yep. Timothy Oliphant as another new friend of the group is Mickey, crazy-eyed Mickey. Oops, spoiler alert. Her beau in this one is
Allegedly.
played by Jerry O'Connell.
Oh,
Man,
Nev's beau.
Yeah, Nev's beau. That guy is just the worst actor to me. Does anyone else think that guy cannot?
I mean, he's just
all?
he's like a Chris Evans
He's
kind
a
of
dupe.
character, right? Where he's just meant to be a bro. That's what he is. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't done a lot of stuff lately, so
my favorite
maybe he's realized
role of
it.
Gordy in Stand By Me still, I think, is his best acting to date.
Definitely.
So good. Then you have, I'm just checking these off. Got Jamie Kennedy.
And wait, it's Jerry, not Charlie O'Connell?
Yeah, that's a different actor.
Okay.
That's his brother, I guess.
But Charlie was not Stand By Me.
No.
That was Jerry.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jerry O'Connell's
pie?
chubby little kid.
Ew.
No, chubby kid Gordy.
Yeah, who eats the pie?
No.
Oh, who's the pie contest?
That's a
barfs?
story he tells. That's all fake. Remember?
Isn't okay.
Oh, sorry. Gordy is the skinny Will Wheaton who tells the story.
Okay, thanks. I was like,
Vern,
wait, I'm confused.
Vern is Jerry O'Connell's character.
Phew, glad we cleared that up.
Okay, so the beginning, kind of first off the bat, 2 kills. So essentially would have been the Drew Barrymore sort of character in this one. Jada Pinkett Smith.
Controversial these days,
Yeah,
but
controversial, but good.
I love her in this.
Yeah, so good.
What I mean, just they know that the first Scream obviously had a very monumental opening scene that was all anyone talked about it. So they really had to match that in this one, and I think they did it. I was very, watching it. It's talk about gut punching, but we'll talk about it. But what an opening!
I know it equally terrified me, just like the first scene of
Good,
the
yeah.
original. So
Yeah.
it worked. It worked. Omar Epps plays her
Omar
boyfriend.
Epps.
Also remember that kill only from what I heard and people
From
talking
me?
about it. Yes. And again, I was before it happened, I was oh, I know what's going to happen here. I was narrating it for Jimmy. I'm this is what's going to happen. This is going to happen. Boom. Okay. We got those 2. Sarah Michelle Gellar and Joshua Jackson have, Joshua Jackson definitely cameo, I'd say. Very short little bit of a kid in the college. And then Sarah Michelle Gellar as a murder victim, sassy bitch murder victim. She's really growing on me as
I know.
an actress.
She's come a long way.
She used to really annoy me, just the way she acts, and she's always but I think it's funny and really effective.
Totally.
Really liked her role
great.
as Cece, the
SMG.
sorority gal. You have Rebecca Gayheart and Portia de Rossi as 2.
Oh my God, I didn't even notice that was
sisters.
Portia de Rossi.
Me
I know
neither.
I've read that before, and I think I forget every time I watch this. I always just refer to her as the eyebrow girl. Mm-hmm. That's funny.
So funny. Very briefly, Marisol Nichols, who is Audrey from Vegas Vacation.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you notice?
Yep. Noticed. Another sorority sister.
Yep. You had Tori Spelling playing herself as the actress who plays Sydney Prescott in the
Super
Stab movie.
meta.
Super meta. Because in the first one, she says, Sydney's someone like Tori Spelling will play me.
And she did. I love that.
Luke Wilson as Billy Loomis in the Stab movie. We have, I don't know if you know this one, Selma Blair as the voice on the phone talking to Cece before she gets murdered.
Wow.
Yeah. You have Louis Arquette, David Arquette's dad, as chief of police.
What?
I know.
Hinkley or whatever?
Yes.
Wow.
And then last but not least, Laurie Metcalf as...
Well, you forgot one, which I'll fill in.
Oh, okay.
but
Laurie
yes.
Metcalf as this...
Debbie Salt.
Debbie Salt.
A.K.A.
Come to find out.
Mrs. Loomis.
Mrs. Loomis.
Big,
And then,
big
who
spoiler.
did I forget here?
So Heather Graham plays the Drew Barrymore character in the
yes.
Stab movie. So she's on the screen, the movie that they're watching at the beginning. She plays that character. So super cool.
Yep. And as we said, directed by Wes Craven,
yeah,
Abby,
what a
and
cast.
Kevin Williamson of Dawson's Creek fame, Vampire Diaries fame. He hasn't really done anything big since Vampire Diaries, I don't think, except more screamy stuff, I think.
I think he came back for the most recent Scream, probably.
So Scream stuff.
But yeah, love him. Love that bitch.
Yeah, I mean, he was in this time period of mid 90s, such the writer du jour, and just really love all his stuff, and the nostalgia just takes me back on his kind of I don't know. I'd say almost like, you know, Aaron Sorkin writes kind of like snappy, smart dialogue. This is like Aaron Sorkin for teens, I'd say.
Definitely.
Like snappy, smart teens who know what they're talking about or think they do. And it's just like pretty good writing. And it's always like kind of creative, like plot and stuff. So go K-Dubs there.
K-Dubs. Great.
And he would be the one responsible for doing these crazy rewrites like at a spur of like no notice at all once all this like stuff was leaking and everything. Yeah. I mean, some extra leaked the script. What a jerk.
What a jerk. Really, not your place.
And like the cast all has to sign non-disclosure. Man, would I have trouble
but
with
what
that.
Extra would have known who the... I mean, I thought you said they kept it secret, so like they didn't give it people the last pages.
I think he found it or something. Or maybe it was someone like photocopying the script. You know,
you
have to have so much trust in this business.
Crazy.
So crazy. So yeah, so many people, so exciting. I really wish, you know, I've said this a lot with horror movies since I didn't watch them when I was in high school. I really wish I could go back and like relive what it was like to see these movies as an actual teen and experience them and go opening night. You know, this is before streamings. This is like shit got sold out. Jimmy said he tried to see this and it was sold out, so they had to see Good Will Hunting instead.
Oh well,
not terrible.
Good trade-off.
Not a terrible trade.
Listen, I don't think the crowd was as like crazy as the crowds they're depicting in these stab movies, but it's definitely a hype movie. Certainly, I mean, this was probably the last of like the great of the sequels. I think the third one was not very good. I have to rewatch it. I don't remember a ton. It was like too meta for me or something. It was like very Hollywood.
I know is Noah from Felicity's the Killer.
Okay, why do you have to go right in there, right to the jugular every time? It's just like, what do you want to know about this movie? Oh, I'll tell you the whole thing.
I'll tell you all the Killer.
So but yes, that is true. The fourth one was like fine, and then the most recent one that came out, I had a really good time with. A lot of good, like really back to like the original sensibility, I thought. So recommend the most recent one that came out this year. But yeah, I guess let's just get into this before Sweetie spoils more things, you know?
It's time for the Sweetie synopsis. Yeah.
Sweetie.
Stop treating me like glass, Dewey. I'm not going to break.
Never. Sid would never break. All right. So I don't know what city this opens in, but it is the premiere night of Stab, which is the movie based on the Woodsboro murders, which is what we learned in the first one. So that's everything that happened in the first one. They have now made a Hollywood movie out of it, which they knew they were going to.
Based off of Gail Weathers' book?
Based off of Gail Weathers' book, The Woodsboro Murders. So, huge night for movie, big premiere. The studio has unfortunately given everybody the same costume that the killer wears as a swag bag, which is like interesting. But they've got like things on the ceiling. Everything's exciting. Maureen and her boyfriend, I don't remember what his name was, but they're here to see this movie. She's not really into it. This is Jada Pinkett Smith's character. She's sick. She knows it's like a very like, you know, black people aren't treated well in horror movies. They always get killed first.
I don't think she likes horror movies.
Blah, blah, blah. She doesn't like horror movies.
She's like me.
She's like Sweetie, where she's like puts a good game of like, I hate horror movies, and is like super into it. And it's like, oh man, bitch, get out of here, get out of there. So it's good times. So they go to this movie. She's super scared. She gets up to get some popcorn. And meanwhile, her boyfriend goes to the loo. And so while he's in there, weird scene, he can't use the urinal, so he has to use the toilet stall. Here's a weird whisper of like a woman's voice. So now I've always been curious, like what is happening in this scene? As you may or may not know, I now watch everything with subtitles because I'm old and it's just easier, and sometimes I can't hear what they're saying. As luck would have it, they had a perfect translation of what was being said in that stall. And it was basically a woman being like, mommy's gonna take care of you, blah blah. It was like super creepy, and I don't really understand like who was in that stall. I always assumed it was Mickey, but now I'm like, was it?
I think it was Debbie.
That's crazy. So
but I think he thinks it's someone like hooking up in there, right?
Yes. So he's like, let me listen. So he puts his ear to the stall door, and then unfortunately the killer's in there, takes the knife, direct hit through that stall into his cheek, stabs him. Dead. He's dead.
Do they have a show where, you know, that show like on, I want to say it, like they test out these like myths in that.
Yeah, Mythbusters.
Mythbusters. Hello.
Do they have
Do
a
they
show
have
like
that
that?
for horror movies? Because I'd love to know, can you stab through a bathroom door that will go all the way through the door and then into somebody's ear like that?
I don't know.
I mean, you couldn't
it kind
test it
of
out
looked
with a
like
real
it went through
person,
like his
but-
cheek, but like I guess your ear is very close to your brain, so maybe it hit the brain. But yeah,
Brutal.
direct hit.
So this is a part I remember either somebody telling me about, whether it was Sweetie or I just
sure it was
heard
me.
through the grapevine. I was ready for it, guys. And it was stunning.
Interesting word to use. So Maureen just like doesn't know this is happening, right? So she's just waiting for her boyfriend to come back. So the killer puts on the scream mask and comes back, puts on his jacket and comes into and like sits next to her. The reason I didn't think it was Mrs. Loomis is because the body type is very like bulky. So that's why I assumed it was. I mean, it could be Mickey. I don't know. So, Maureen's again oblivious to this, but then she looks down at her hands and they're covered in blood. And she's like, why are you covered in blood? And then all of a sudden the killer like does this like jerky movement and like takes out a knife and stabs her like right in the gut, like while she's sitting there. And she's like, what? And she like tries to get away. She goes and this is during the beginning kill of Stab. So the whole audience is like, yeah, blah, blah, like so amped up on this. She tries to get away, goes into like the aisle, is like obviously like in very much trouble, bleeding, gasping for life. And then the killer comes, stabs her like 4 more times in front of all these people. And nobody notices because everybody's so, again, hyped up on this movie. They all have these like glow in the dark knives and they're all like pretending to stab each other. So no one notices. So she goes up. Finally, after like the last stab into her, she like crawls up the front and like in front of the screen and is just like, "Ah!" And then like just like looks at everyone, is like, what the fuck is wrong with you all? And then dies. And it's just like, and the camera just stays on her for like a really uncomfortable like 5 seconds, I would say. And then that's how it opens. And it's like, whoa, crazy shit, right? So in the first one, the really devastating thing to me, at least, was that Casey was being stabbed as her parents were like walking up to the house. So that always like fucked me up because I was always like, oh, if I get in a situation, like I'll just run to my parents and they'll be able to save me. But like in this case, it didn't matter. Same thing here. You would think that you would be pretty safe in a room full of people and no one is helping her, and he's just able to carry out this brutal murder in front of all these people. And it's really a commentary on like how much people get wrapped up like in all these things and how people really like glamorize killers and tragedy and that kind of thing. So
Well, I was surprised though that like I get that for the actual Scream franchise because it was fake and fiction, but this was based on real killing.
Right. This
so
was
it
a
seemed
little, this
insensitive
was a little too much. Like no
to have
way would people be
knives.
like doing that.
Right, and
if
like
this was a real life
celebrating the
based on a real
killers
murder.
almost.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like real
Well, that's
people
like-
lost their lives like not that far
so
away, right?
when you're like satirizing something, it always has to be like turned up like a notch. So obviously this is like not true to life, but there is something to be said about how we do like glamorize killers or like serial killers. There's obviously a lot of discussions right now about the Dahmer show and like why are we doing these shows talking about these terrible people. I mean, in my opinion anyways, like I'm not really glamorizing people. Like I think the killers are the most detestable bunch. Like that's not anyone who like I don't want to see anyone get killed. I'm more interested in like the solving and how they solve murders and stuff like that. But yeah, I see the point for sure. But yeah, what a brutal scene. Just like so crazy, just so crazy. So quick side story is that the night before I watched this, the power had went out. And I forgot when the power goes off, like everything that is, I don't know, everything like restarted in my house. So like for some reason my DVD player was on all day and I didn't notice because when the power came back on, it like, circuited everything. So I didn't notice that in the time that the power went off and it came back on, the sound bar for that like pipes out the volume also turned off. And I didn't realize that. So I'm watching Scream 2 and this opening scene happens and there's no sound and I was like, whoa, I was like, this is so artistic. Like I didn't remember that they did this and like took the sound away. It's really like really impactful. But then I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what? And then I turned on the sound bar and it was like, like all this crazy sound. So I was like, okay, just kidding. But good times. Anyways, so that's the opening. Meanwhile, we meet our friend Sydney Prescott, who is now at college.
good for her after having such a tragedy and still being like, I'm going to college.
Right.
I don't know if I would do the same.
Where is this college
I don't
is
know.
my question, because they find out in a movie class that this happened the Woodsboro murders happened in California. I assumed this college was in California, but I guess it's not. So I don't know where this is. But she's living her life. Great invention has come out since the first one, which is caller ID. So Sid is really thriving. All these people are still calling her prank calls, and she just is like, okay, Billy, blah, 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 555-2612.
Total
like,
90s.
Got you.
90s memory of when that rolled out in our own lives. Oh my
Big
God.
deal.
Huge deal. It was, and now we don't even think that's like, you don't even think about it anymore. But if you remember the time when you would pick up the phone and you had no idea who it was, just think about that. Let it sit. How crazy that was. To know it's just
a real mystery.
You always know who it is now, unless it's blocked. But that was our lives, guys. Who's this?
Soon, So soon Sid catches wind of this murder that happened during the stab premiere, and she immediately is suspicious that, it's happening again. So gets the crew back together. Dewey shows up. Gail Weathers shows up.
Randy
goes to the college also, still is holding a torch for Sydney and is in love with her, that kind of thing. So they start kind of like digging into these murders. Another murder happens one night. So Sydney is being what is that called when someone's like wants you to join a
well, she's like rushing.
But I don't think it didn't seem like she was very into it. And like the sorority really wanted her to join, but she like really wasn't into it. I got the feeling. But so her roommate,
they want her to pledge.
Yeah. Her roommate's definitely into it and like wants to pledge. So like she brings Sydney to this sorority party. Meanwhile, we meet Cece, who's played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And she is sober sister. Sweetie was in a sorority. I had a question. Was there such a thing as sober sister?
I mean, we didn't have it like you. Okay, our sorority, those sorority houses were beautiful. Okay, they were mansions. I don't know what school this was. Ours, I went to a good school. Ours were rinky dink. Actually, so sorority houses, they had us in dorms because they had this. I went to school in New York. They had this rule that so many women living in a house was like considered a brothel or something. So they like couldn't put us in real houses. There was all these really archaic rules around women and colleges and drinking. Very strange. Anyway, so we were in dorms, not like that at all. I don't know if I guess we did have someone that maybe stayed back, but nobody was driving. Like everything was on campus. So it wasn't like anybody needed a ride. But if we had sorority parties, someone would be the sober sister at the party in case someone needed help at that party.
Right. So that was my thought, was like, if they're all going to the same party, why can't Cece go to the party and just not drink? It didn't make sense.
That's what I remember we had, because like I said, people weren't driving.
But she's staying home. She's wearing a weird outfit that like I would never stay at home relaxing in. It was like definitely a party outfit where like her pants always annoyed me. They're like these skin tight, like gray elephant pants, like so unflattering. But anyway, so she gets a call. She thinks it's her drunk boyfriend, Ted. It turns out it's the killer, and so she starts getting a little freaked. So her friend that she's talking to tells her to, call campus security. So she's like, great idea. So she starts hearing like movement upstairs, gets a little freaked out, tries to go outside, but old days of cordless phones, you can't move too far away from the receiver or they can't hear you.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I would just be like, get out of there.
Like,
who knows how far she is from anything else, though, but still.
Just get the fuck
get
out.
in your car. I mean,
get the
fuck
the
keys,
out.
Always bad decisions. Always bad decisions.
Yeah. And they're always leaving the door open. I'm like, if there's a situation, it's not like, it's like a mouse in the house. You leave the door open. Maybe the mouse will run out. It's not like that. Like, just like close that door, call somebody, have them go through the house, whatever. So fake out someone, like one of her sisters was there, so probably she was the one making the noises upstairs, actually. But unfortunately, Cece, again, had left the door open, right? So then the killer's able to just like squeeze in and then hide behind a closet. So now he's in the house for reals. So she thinks, she's okay. Oh, it was just my roommate. Like everything is fine. And then the killer, makes himself known, chases her through the house, stabs her, and then throws her over the balcony of the sorority house, and she falls splat dead. So now there's 3 people who've been killed. So Gail Weathers, Dewey, again, no longer a cop, and then this police chief of the town or the school of the college, maybe the town. They write all the people's names on a chalkboard, and they find out that this killer is basically like recreating the Woodsboro murder. So he's killing the Jada Pinkett Smith's character's name was Maureen, which is the name of Sydney's mom. Her boyfriend's name was something Stevens, so Steve whatever, and then Cece's real name was Casey, like Casey and Scream. So they're like, someone's trying to send a message. So now they're all on their guard. So now they're all trying to figure out like who could this fucking be. So they're sitting around outside, Randy, Dewey, Gail, and her new cameraman Joel, and trying to figure it out. And they get a call on Gail's cell phone, and it's the killer. And so they're like, okay, perfect opportunity. We just have to find someone who's talking into a phone because he knows they can see them because he's saying like, I can see you, blah, blah, blah. So now they're looking for people with a phone. So they're all looking, Gail, Dewey run off looking for people with a phone. Randy stays on the phone with the killer and is like basically taunting them. So he starts like saying some mean things about Billy Loomis. And then the killer was hiding in Gail's van, opens the door, grabs Randy and kills him and like leaves him in the van. So then they all find him dead and bloody, and it's very sad. Meanwhile, everyone, Sid had like a close call. So she actually, again, the killer, this happened in the first one too, I think, where like the killer tries to make an attempt. But it's never clear that, like, in my opinion, I think the point of that is always to scare her and never to actually kill her. So that happens. Her boyfriend like runs in to try to save the day. He gets like stabbed in the arm, which was like kind of a suspicious move, and then they like leaves him bleeding. So now he's kind of like a soft suspicion, like just like Billy, like, oh, it got killed, but like didn't, and like that kind of
planted the seed.
Planted the seed
Is
of
this
that
happening again?
And then Sydney finds out that Randy died, so she's super upset about that. So she's just super bummed. So they give her 2 detectives to follow her around campus to keep her safe, and they're just like keeping tabs on everyone pretty much. So meanwhile, and like good for Sid, she's studying acting. So she wants to be an actress, which like interesting. Like if you're someone who's been terrorized, I don't know if like I would go into acting as my profession, but like whatever, go Sid. So she is starring in, I don't know what play this is, but it involves like Cassandra, who is the like famous Greek seer who was cursed to see the future and these prophecies, but have nobody believe her. So it's like some Greek thing. And like, as luck would have it, this scene, like everyone's wearing robes and like white masks and has knives. So you're like, whoa, this is heavy. Like she tries to get out of it. And the director's like, this is your role. Like you can make it and like conquer the
Is
fear.
that guy ridiculously stupid?
That guy's a famous actor too. I forgot to look him up, but but anyway, so she kind of has a meltdown because she thinks she sees the killer. I'm not sure if she actually does. I thought for a second Mickey was one of the
actors?
people in that play, but they didn't show him when everyone was taking off their masks, so maybe not. So maybe she was just like imagining it, basically.
But maybe because he ran away. That's
true.
why.
He could have run away, but then they would have been like, "Where'd Mickey go?" I don't know. So another, she's just back in her old nightmare, basically, just like over and over again. Meanwhile, we meet Debbie Salt, who is this like wannabe reporter who's like really obsessed with Gail Weathers and is like constantly asking her these questions. She's just kind of this like weird peripheral character. So if you've seen a lot of these movies, you're definitely like suspecting like, what is this? Like, we know this actress. Why would she just have this random role as this like random like reporter lady? So you're very suspicious, definitely. Meanwhile, let's see, the next big thing that happens is Joel, the cameraman, quits after Randy gets killed in his van. Gail has his camera footage and is with Dewey, and they're like, wait a minute, like if the killer was at all of these crime scenes, like he's probably on these tapes. So they bring the tapes to like the AV department in this college, and they start watching them, but then they decided to make out instead.
Yeah, they've had this like low grade flirting going on, which then like ups to the next level. They realize once like Gail becomes a little bit more not like hungry for the story. Once Randy dies, she feels bad about what happened, and then she gets a little bit more human, I think, to Dewey.
Definitely.
And he's like, let's hook up.
Definitely. So they start hooking up. Then the killer starts piping in like his own footage, and Gail's like, that's not my footage. So the killer's there. There's a tense scene where they're like scary things. They're in these different rooms, and it's like one of those rooms where there's like a wind, like a glass dividing them.
It was a soundproof booth.
Soundproof booth.
It's a media department and
That
like
Dewey's in.
film school. So they have all these like
a studio.
Yeah,
kind
it's
of.
studio, but all the rooms are like connected, and there's these boxes in them. So it's like this maze of rooms.
Yeah,
she
maze
just
of
keeps
rooms,
going
lots
into.
of doors, very
tense
very
scene.
stressful.
Yeah.
And then Gail sees the killer come into the room that Dewey's in, and she watches him get stabbed, basically, and he's like up against the glass, very traumatizing. Gail escapes. She does. She runs right into Debbie Salt. Oh, but at the time, Cotton had like come out of somewhere, and Cotton like finds Gail and is like covered in blood. So she's like, "Oh my God, Cotton! Like you did it!" And so Gail runs out, tells Debbie Salt like, "Cotton's the murderer." And Debbie's like, "Cotton weary," and is like, "Oh my God, I'm the murderer." So that's that scene. Meanwhile, Sid and Hallie have been given a ride by the detectives somewhere. I forget where they're going, but they're at a stoplight, and the killer comes out and kills the detectives.
This part seemed believable to me.
Yeah, that one gets like run over, like a pipe goes through his head. The other one had just died, I think, in the car.
In the face, like,
well, this was
outside
Mickey.
of the car.
Yeah, this was definitely Mickey who was doing like this part, because they were definitely in two places at the same time. So the killer smashes into like some wall, so he's kind of like knocked out in the front seat. Unfortunately, Sid and Hallie are in the back of a cop car, which, if you know anything about cop cars, like, you're not made to get out of that back seat, so
it's
they're
just
stuck
like my
in there.
car currently, where someone has to let you out of it because
Sweetie,
it's broken.
Sweetie often forgets, and then I'm stuck in the car like, "Help me, help!"
And I can never hear you.
Yeah, I know, soundproof. So this scene is so tense. They like pull back the like gate, and that's like dividing the drivers from like the suspects in the back. They pull that back, and Sid has to crawl over the front seat, like over this not dead, but like this passed out killer in the front seat who would come alive at any moment and kill them. So it's so tense. And then right when she's like crossing over like his body, she decides, "I'm going to take his mask off and see who this is." And she gets like closer and closer to pulling it off. And then right at that minute, she like touches the horn with her elbow, and it's like, beep, and it's, oh man, it's so good. But he still hasn't woken up. So she's like, "This is interesting." So she finally makes it out, tries to let her friend out of the car. The car still won't open. So bummer, Hallie has to go out the front too. So you're like, fuck, like I just went through this whole traumatic thing. Now I have to do it again with Hallie. Don't worry, Hallie makes it out. So they get out, they're like free, they're gonna run, but then Sid's like, "I have to go back, I have to see who it is," and they have this like discussion while they're trying to decide this, and Hallie's like, "No, like let's just go, like smart people go, dumb people stay." So Sid goes back to check, and unfortunately the killer is no longer there. Where is he? Oh, he's in the side, he grabs Hallie and stabs her, she's dead. Way to go. Damn it.
Always go together.
I know, always go together. It could have been avoided, but Hallie's dead. Sid runs, straight to the drama department. By the way, some things I forgot to mention is that her boyfriend has been suspected again of being the killer. She breaks up with him because she doesn't want him to get hurt. But I think she's also just really trying to distance herself from like these people who are supposed to care about her, because she obviously got burned by Billy in the first time. So he's in a fraternity, and he had given Sid his fraternity necklace letters or whatever, which apparently is a big no-no, and you're not supposed to give your girlfriend that. So his brothers like abduct him and like tie him to like the Greek cross that they're using in this play and leave him there like drunk or like whatever written on or whatever. So he's like attached to this thing. Sid's in the drama on the stage, like in the drama department, and then this cross comes down with her boyfriend on it, and she's like, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" And you as the audience are kind of like, I don't like, is this a fake out again? Is this Billy Loomis part 2? Like, what's happening? And then Mickey shows up, and so he's revealed as like the first killer. And basically you find out like he's just like fucking crazy. And so he tries to make it seem like he and the boyfriend have been working together, and so that like she doesn't trust him and she doesn't know what to think. But then Mickey just takes out a gun and like fucking shoots him. So he's like, just kidding, like it was me. Yeah. So she's sad obviously about that, and now she has to like take care of this fucking Mickey crazy guy. So then the actual second killer comes through the door, and it's Gail Weathers being like hustled in by like someone who has a gun behind her. And it turns out to be Debbie Salt, who is Billy Loomis's mother.
It's always the mom.
Always the mom. So if you recall from the first one, Billy's primary motivation for like why he like went into this murdering frenzy is that his dad had an affair with Sydney's mom, and that's why his mom left town. So he's always like very like destroyed by that and like upset.
Broke his parents' marriage.
So my thought is like, okay, Debbie Salt, like why did you leave? Like take your son with you? I don't know. Weird.
She's weird.
So anyway, so she's crazy, and so she's now on a revenge plot because Sydney killed her son, so that's what she's after. She had met Mickey in like a serial killer chat room or something, and so he was like already an active serial killer, or maybe wanted to be one. His thing is that he wants to be caught so that he can blame. His defense is that he blames the movies. and then he'll get off or whatever. But he's just like this weird delusional kind of person. So Debbie Salt, Mrs. Loomis, is like, oh yeah, sorry honey, like we're not going to go to trial actually because I'm going to kill you. So she shoots him. And so he's dead. And then it's now Debbie Salt v. Gail Weathers, Sydney. She shoots Gail Weathers. Sydney does this cool, she's like, you know, I know this drama department. I know this stage. And she's like doing all these things and like cutting the cords for the rocks and things and sandbags.
That got pretty comical to me, I gotta say. Like, it was hilarious.
Poor Debbie Salt, yeah.
Debbie Salt is being taken down by like styrofoam blocks. When Sydney does like the thunder thing, like, you know, there's a big sheet of metal that behind like stage that you shake it like this and it goes boom, 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 like to symbolize thunder or to sound like thunder. And Debbie's like, and then it's like the fog machine, the dry ice, and she gets it with the dry ice. I was kind of laughing.
It was kind of funny.
Pretty funny.
It was funny. But finally, you know, like big showdown. Debbie has Sid cornered, and then who should save the day but Cotton Weary?
Just barely, though.
Just barely. Has the gun pointed on her. He does end up shooting her. Debbie Salt.
Yeah, but so Debbie's like, what, like, Cotton, like, you want your 5 minutes of fame? Like, I can do that for you. Like, I'm a reporter. Like, let's kill Sydney. And then, like, trying to convince him, basically, like, to help her out. And then finally, Sydney is like, no, like, or no, that's how she convinces Cotton to help her out, because she's like, do you want your fight? Like, I will go on Diane Sawyer with you and we can do this. Because that's, like, all he wanted. Like, he wants some sort of payback, not a violent revenge way, but he spent a year in jail for a crime he didn't commit, so he feels like he's owed something from Sydney. He doesn't want to kill her or anything, but he feels like he's owed something. So she's like, I will go on Diane Sawyer with you, and so he's like, cool. Shoots Debbie Salt, and she's hopefully dead.
And then they find out Gail is still alive, thank God. So they pull her up, and then Gail's like, give me that other gun. So now her and Gail are armed. And they're like, are they dead? Like, they always come back to life. And as you're like mulling that over, Mickey jumps back to life and is like, "Arr!" And then Sid shoots him like maybe 10 times. So he's dead for real. And then they like look back at Debbie Salt and they're like, ooh. And then Sid just like pops her in the head and she's like, just in case. So she's such a badass, you know, love that bitch. And then luckily, you know, Dewey's actually alive still, just like in the first one. You thought he was dead. He comes out on the stretcher. You're like, he's okay. So more wounds, I guess. Maybe another, I forget if he's like, has a cane in the third one or not.
That one looked pretty bad because he was getting stabbed, and whenever you get stabbed and blood starts shooting out of your mouth, I feel like that's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. Yeah. So, you know, 9 lives that Dewey decimal. So, so that's that. And yeah, so that's what happens. Poor Sid, you know, tragic life.
Just keeps getting more tragic.
Tragic life. So like we said, this movie is so meta that it like kind of starts turning your brain for a while. And they like to do this thing where they make, so my favorite one is when Randy says something about some crack about she like, Gail never got over those like nude pictures that were posted on the internet. And Gail Weathers is like, it was my face on Jennifer Aniston's body. And like, of course, in your head, you're like, oh my God, like Friends, so funny. Like, it's just funny to think about a world in which Courtney Cox does not exist as a real person, but her character Gail Weathers does, but Jennifer Aniston does. So like, who's Jennifer Aniston starring in Friends with if it's not Courtney Cox? It just like really blows my mind.
I really liked Gail Weathers in this.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't, she's still kind of, she's good in the other one too, but.
Right. She still kind of sucks at the beginning and you're like, oh, I thought you were cool now. What happened? But after Randy's death, she's just like, really is like, shit, like people I love could actually get her and killed. So got to shape up.
And like at the end, she, her cameraman who had quit comes out and he's like, you got the spot now. You're Gail Weathers. Like, let's do this. And then she just sees Dewey like coming down in the stretcher and she's like, he's alive. And like, she's like, screw this.
Yeah, she doesn't care.
Reporting thing, goes to him, wants to ride with him in the ambulance. I got choked up. It was very emotional for me. Very sweet.
So the funniest thing about that part was like, so this new cameraman Joel is around for like maybe 5 seconds. He like shoots like 3 things. Randy gets killed in his van. He's like, I'm out, and he like leaves. So when he comes back at the end, he's like, Gail, like I'm back. Like let's shoot it just like the old days, you and me. And I'm like, the old days? I'm like, that was like 10 minutes ago when you quit. And now
what
you're back.
A leech.
It was funny. But yeah, I got a kick out of that. But yeah, she's cool. She honestly only gets better with age. Through all of these sequels, she gets better and better. So love that Gail Weathers. Love that bitch. This movie also really like glamorizes the college life. It's just like really brought me back to like, ooh, lecture halls, tiny desks, like
shower tote. The shower tote in the first scene where she grabs her shower tote
Love
to go take a shower.
Love a shower tote.
Oh my God.
I loved my shower tote.
Me back.
Mine was blue. I loved it.
I think mine was pink. Remember the shower shoes? You had
Shower
shower
shoes,
shoes. You didn't want to get athlete's
feet diseases.
Feet diseases from the shower. My shower was at the opposite end of my hall, so I had to walk through, and I didn't even have a bathrobe. This is how crazy this was. I'm a bathroom crazy person now.
Yeah, I just did towels.
Yeah. I'd walk with a towel
down the hallway,
all the way
past
down
all
the hallway.
These like boys, and it's just like
and
in
then
the
on
movie.
the way back, dripping wet.
Yeah. Oh well, I would dry it. You would dry it off.
Two in a mouth.
You've always been like a wet shower person. Like you don't dry off or something. Why don't you do that?
It takes so much time.
What? It takes a second. You just go do.
That's why I have this robe, which is basically a towel, and I put it on.
But yeah, that is such a funny thing that like you're just like my bathroom sophomore year was I had to go down the stairs, so I was like down the stair. It was right there, but it was just like down the stairs because they did like a boys' bathroom, girls' bathroom every other floor, or whatever.
They had Dave Matthews Band playing at like now that wasn't really like my era of college. This is late '90s, so that was definitely like DMB time. But just remember like, oh my God, it's like these college band, that like, I don't know, ours was like Dispatch or something. You'd hear those songs, you'd be like, oh my God, it reminds me of just like in the dorm rooms listening to these songs.
Good times.
Did you notice the Freddy Krueger sweater in that first scene?
Oh, just like in the first one? I didn't notice it in the movie scene or the college scene? First scene?
The first scene in college when she's in the dorm room.
Who's wearing it?
Her roommate's sweater is in the closet. She opens up the closet and it's like right there.
Yeah, it's like an Easter egg. Like the first one, the janitor had that sweater on.
And so I think Wes Craven's in this little cameo.
Oh, who was his cameo this time?
What was he? Someone in the crowd or something? Also, wait, what's his name? Who was the killer in the first one? Not
Billy.
Not Billy, the actor.
Oh, Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard was like in a frat party scene.
Oh yeah, with like sunglasses on or something. Yeah, I remember reading that and be like, oh,
wait a minute,
funny.
he's dead.
He's dead. Yeah, funny stuff. Loved the college life. Good times. Good times. What else did I have?
Do you know that the sorority house was the same house they used for Miss Trunchbull's house in Matilda?
No. Wow. Cool. Yeah, those houses are crazy. I don't know a lot of, most sororities and fraternities were just like shit houses. Like they were party houses, so they were just like terrible. And I would never want to live there. But
old. Like the ones in my college, so like I said, like the women didn't have any actual houses, but the men had these. So my school was from the 1700s. These houses were literally from the 1700s. They were falling apart. The scariest house never got like fixed at all because they were owned by the sororities or the fraternities. So all their money would have to, I guess, go into fixing the houses or something. And they just never, they wanted to party. They didn't want to fix the houses. So they were mad old and so gross inside. Yeah. So these were very, really nice. I don't know what school this was, but I'd like to go.
Some made up Hollywood college where like the dorm room is like a palace.
Huge.
You're like, what is this? Funny stuff. But yeah, great movie. I had a great time. Sweetie was devastated. Obviously, she gets emotional. But,
I get emotional. So effective though. I mean, it's a joke, and they bring it up in this one. Like Jada Pinkett Smith is like, I don't like horror movies, but then like you said, gets into it, and she's yelling at the screen, being like, "Don't go in there."
The other thing,
what are you doing?
And the other thing
I
about
was doing that during the movie.
And the other thing about that scene too, that's really great, is that like she's making this point about how like horror movies have never been like very kind to black actors, and so she's always like, they always make them do like some stupid shit and then like could have got out of it. But in that first scene, like she tried to get out of that and like run and like get people to help her, but no one helped her. So it's like a very, again, another level commentary of that, that like also on some level of like people don't care about like when black people go missing, right? And that's always like the thing of like, oh, no one cares if like 20 black people are going missing, but the second some white girl goes missing in a well, like people really like come to order and like have to save her. So kind of a commentary on that too, which is like pretty brilliant.
Isn't there also the horror movie thing where the black characters always die, and the cameraman brings this up, which is why he like wants
They usually
to bail.
die first is
okay.
like is the trope there. So this was again another like
Right.
kind of like the tongue in cheek, like, oh yes, and then like now we'll have these people die.
Because in the first one there were no
Black people, right? And so they were
people of
definitely
color.
like helping with that of
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, we got to add some diversity to this cast. So having Hallie as her best friend was cool, but
Right.
then like she dies too. Like I kind of wish Hallie had made it. Give Sid some
That's what I said.
friend besides Gail, who like she's never sure if she can trust, and then
Right.
Dewey, who she does love, but like he's been killed a lot of times already, so like he's a target. I forget in the third one there might only be one killer. I think that's the first time they've ever done that, like one killer thing, and I forget what Noel's. Yeah. I think he's ends up being. You find out he's Sydney's like half brother or something. Like his mom had an affair. I don't know.
Lots of affairs.
And like her mom was trying to be an actress. So I guess that's why Sydney like studies acting in college too, because her mom was like in Hollywood.
Does her dad die in the first one?
No, he's alive. So I don't know where he is. Yeah, that's a good point. We'll have to watch the third one and see, what develops.
So Billy Loomis didn't want to kill. Oh, the dad. That dad wasn't involved. He already killed the mom. Okay, sorry. The dad was an innocent bystander.
They wanted to pin it on him. So they were gonna kill the dad
Yes.
and have it look like the dad.
Yes.
It was the dad.
That
He
was
killed
it.
Sid.
That was
And he killed everybody or whatever. But didn't go quite as planned. But yeah, great movie. Obviously, another one of my favorites. I definitely was not as scared for this one as I was like in the first one, but maybe because I was older, so more mature. So, but I love it. I love these movies. I think they're so smart. I think that they're just constantly like subverting kind of expectations or doing new things. The later sequels, yeah, kind of like little, I don't know. But then the most recent one, again, I recommend it. So go and watch
that
it. But yeah, anything else we want to bring up?
No, I'm just, I say this all the time. Really glad that I'm into scary movies and horror now. If you are not, or give it a try, I swear, like it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. Watch it with all the lights on. If you really think like the dark is, making you even more scared. There's really good things about horror movies and they're really fun. So
Great. Wow.
give them a whirl.
Wow.
Just like Jada Pinkett Smith. I mean, I know she died in the horror movie. So maybe that wasn't the best choice for her, but she did enjoy it at the end. I'm glad she died knowing, hey, horror's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and I will say that at first when I was watching this, I thought in my head that like they get a lot of the dialogue that happened for real with Drew Barrymore like in the movie, and I remember being like suspicious of that. But rewatching this, you realize they really don't know anything that happened, and you can really see how they put the pieces together based on what maybe the crime scene report came out as. Like they probably mentioned the fact that there was Jiffy Pop like on fire on the stove, right? So they knew, okay, she probably made Jiffy Pop. They knew that the boyfriend was dead, also found there, so they like invented something there, made that. But they have her like taking a shower as the first thing when the call comes in. You're like, okay, that didn't happen. And so it's funny for you to be like, this is how Hollywood would have made a movie out of what actually happened in the first one that you experienced, so so it's just very, very interesting how they did that. And then the scene with Billy and Sid in the hallway was actually kind of what they did say. So I thought that was funny. But, I mean, Sid was around. There were probably people around who could have heard that. Maybe. I don't know. But I love that Luke Wilson as Billy. I just like get such a kick out of that. He's like got the long greasy hair, and it's like, Sid, you really got to get over it. When my mom left my dad, I just got over it. And Tori Spence like, your dad, and she says what Sid said basically, like, your mom left town, like she's not like dead somewhere, like. Ugh. And let me just say that like I love Tori Spelling, obviously, because I'm obviously knee deep in 90210. Really love that bitch.
Have you finished that yet?
So, no. No, but Brandon just left, and then Swap with Dylan comes in after like 2 seasons gone. He's got a heroin addiction. I'm sad about it. Sad times. Still upset over Rebecca Gayhart's murder from when her mob boss dad or whatever shot her by accident. So anyways, great times. Love Tori Spelling. Miss that bitch. But yeah, great movie. Good times. So yeah, come find us. Come talk to us. We're on Twitter at the Sweetie Club or on Instagram at Large Marge Santos. Thank you as always for listening. Bye. Bye.